Word of Power, and I am your host, Apostle Dr. Marino, here for this video blog. And today I'm answering the question, what does it mean to be called to the nations? If there's one thing that absolutely everybody today tells me that they think they are, it's called to the nations. Oh, I'm a prophet to the nations. I'm called to the nations. God is calling me to the nations. But when I ask them what nations, they don't have an answer. They go, all of them. Or they kind of stumble if I say, well, you don't know where you're going. And they go, oh, no, God will take care of me. But I think that what it really is that there are people who probably wouldn't recognize different countries if they pointed it out on a map. And so that's really very startling to me because they don't do any preparation, they don't learn the language, they don't seek God about what they're supposed to do or their message, and they don't understand how messages vary between cultures. The way that we may have to deliver our message may be different in one country versus another, and they just kind of act like they act everywhere else, crazy and maniac-like and insane and rude and nasty, just like they act on the internet. They're planning to do that in another country, which I better add here probably won't go over real big in certain nations. You'll be more likely to get thrown out or, get put in jail, and if that happens and it's because you're rude, do not blame it on the gospel, blame it because you didn't follow culture. But what does it mean to be called to the nations, to be called to this or called to that? Well, if we're going to be technical, there were two classifications of people, particularly in the Old Testament. And those were the Jewish people, which we can see a lot about, Israel, ancient Israel, the Hebrew people that God spoke to and talked to and were having the law and were going to bring forth the Messiah from their culture. And then you had the Gentiles, which were the quote-unquote nations. And the Gentiles were regarded as more or less not Hebrew people, not Israel. They were outside of Israel, meaning they didn't follow the same laws, rules, and regulations that Israel did. And so Gentile nations was kind of everybody else. And if we're going to be technical, most of us in church today would be classified as Gentile people in one form or another because we were not born Jewish and we are not from Jewish culture. My family's Italian. That would make me a Gentile in terms of understanding. And we know from the work of Jesus Christ and his sacrifice that we are a part of what God is doing now. But if we're going to be technical and we're going to talk about it in terms of a bigger system or a bigger thing, when the distinction was made about being called to the nations, it was to distinguish between being called exclusively to the Jewish people and being called to prophesy or to deliver a message beyond Israel. And so being called to the nations meant that you had a call that went beyond the immediate people of Israel. So it didn't necessarily mean it in the way that we're using it today. It meant that somebody was called to go beyond the immediate religious community that they had and cultural community and deliver it to somebody else. And it might have been no more than their neighbors, the Assyrians or the Chaldeans or somebody of that extent, and they were to go and deliver that message to them because what God gave them pertained to them. We're going to look at Jeremiah chapter 1, and I'm going to start in verse 4. The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Ah, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am only a child. But the Lord said to me, Do not say I'm only a child. You must go to everyone I send you to and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, Now I have put my words in your mouth. See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant. Jeremiah's call was not just for Israel. How would we apply being called to the nations today? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to travel or you're going to be a prima donna with an entourage or you're going to have your own personal hairdresser, like some woman I met once upon a time said it was going to happen to her. What it basically means is that you are called to the different people other than where you come from, and you are called to do something different than maybe what is traditionally done within your own group. So, for example, Jeremiah's message went beyond Israel. And in this particular instance, if you're called to the nations, it means that you have a message that can translate to different cultures. But it means sometimes that you have to make your message translate for different cultures. So if you really believe that you're called to the nations, stop throwing it around like it's some kind of calling card or some kind of entitlement privilege or something that makes you better than everybody else, and go do the work that it requires. Go and learn the languages of the nations where you know you're called to. Jeremiah found out really quick who he was called to go minister to. God let him know that. God guided him to that. He didn't just go, oh, I'm called to the nations, and run around out there and do his thing and not be specific. Find out where you're called to go and who you're called to minister, and learn their language and learn their culture and learn how you have to deliver the message in a way that will be appealing to them. Because by doing that, you are going to make the gospel accessible to a people besides your own. The gospel's bigger than us. The Word of God is bigger than us, and it's bigger than our style or the way that we may be comfortable doing things. And so being called to the nations means you're going to have that adaptability in order to go do that. And also, if you're called to the nations, start by going across the street to your neighbor or go across town and visit another church. Don't have the attitude that you are called to the nations, you are so holy and touched that you can't do anything locally. Reaching out to people starts right where you are. And I'm so sick of hearing about people who think they're called to do all these incredible things and yet can't even go help their neighbor when their spouse dies. Reach out to somebody and make that difference. And while you're doing that, learn about people and cultures and learn exactly how that message is going to translate to whoever it is you are called to. I thank you for watching this program today. Do you have a question you'd like me to answer on air? Send it to me at questions@powerfortoday.org. Also, be sure, if you're interested in visiting us, learning more about Apostolic Fellowship International Ministries, to visit our website at www.powerfortoday.org. Also, if you're in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, be sure to check out Sanctuary Apostolic Fellowship and visit our website at www.sanctuaryapostolicfellowship.org to learn more about what we're doing right here. This is Apostle Dr. Leanne saying thank you for watching today, and until next time, be blessed.